In my town, people say if you hear a child whistling under Miller's Bridge after midnight, you're already too late. Part 1. The story everyone pretends is a joke. In my town, people say if you hear a child whistling under Miller's Bridge after midnight, you're already too late. I hadn't been back to Ash Creek, Indiana, in almost 11 years when my mother died. That sounds colder than I mean it to. People hear that and think I must have been a bad son, or she must have been a bad mother, or maybe both. The truth is less dramatic and a lot more American than people like to admit. Life got expensive. Distance got easy. Pride did the rest. I moved to Indianapolis at 22, told myself I was leaving for work, for space, for a better shot at becoming somebody. Maybe that was true at first. Then time passed the way it does when you don't look directly at it. New apartment, new job. New excuses. I called on holidays, sent flowers on birthdays, visited once every few years, and convinced myself that counted as love. Then, one Tuesday morning I got a call from a hospital in Muncie, telling me my mother had suffered a stroke in her kitchen and never woke up. 3 days later, I was driving west on State Road 38 with a suit hanging in the back seat, a paper cup of gas station coffee going cold in the console, and the strange feeling that every mile home was taking me deeper into a version of myself I thought I'd outgrown. Ash Creek looked exactly like the kind of town people leave and still dream about by accident. There was the old water tower with Ash Creek painted in faded blue letters. The grain silos. The church with the white steeple. The diner with the neon pie sign in the window. 2 pickup trucks parked outside the hardware store, a row of ranch houses with trimmed lawns and plastic flags near the mailbox. A place built on routine, where everybody still knew who taught 3rd grade and whose boy got a scholarship, and which family hadn't gone to church in months. Nothing looked haunted. That's the thing about towns with legends. The evil never sits out in the open like a movie set, waiting for thunder. It hides under normal life. Under little league schedules and discount groceries and Friday night football. It lives in the pauses between things. In the way people stop smiling when a certain place gets mentioned. Miller's Bridge was like that. It sat just outside town where Old Quarry Road crossed Blackwater Creek, a rusted steel truss bridge built sometime in the 1930s, narrow enough to make 2 trucks slow down when passing. The county had talked about replacing it for years, but never did. People still used it during the day if they were headed toward the fishing access road or the old farmland on the other side. At night, though, most folks took the longer route. Officially, it was because the bridge was old and the road was poorly lit. Unofficially, it was because of the whistling. Every town in America has a place like that, a road, a tunnel, a bridge, a patch of woods, somewhere teenagers dare each other to go because local adults work too hard pretending not to care. In Ash Creek, kids grew up on the same warning: if you were under Miller's Bridge after midnight and heard a child whistling, do not look into the water. Nobody could ever tell the story the same way twice. Some said a farm boy fell through the ice there in the winter of 1957. Some said it was a railroad kid, a drifter's son, though there hadn't been tracks near Ash Creek in decades. The most common version was about a 12-year-old named Eli Mercer who vanished near the creek one summer night in 1989. People said search crews found his bike on the bridge but never found him. Then the story would change, depending on who was talking and how much they'd had to drink. Some claimed they heard whistling beneath the bridge on humid nights. Some said the sound didn't come from below at all, it came from inside the metal beams above you, like the bridge itself had lungs. Some said if you looked down into the creek after hearing it, you'd see a face under the water, with its eyes open. And some said the real danger wasn't looking, it was hearing your own name whispered back. I grew up on that story. I laughed at it the way kids laugh at everything they secretly hope isn't true. By high school, Miller's Bridge was just a place to drag a cooler. Spray cheap beer foam into the dark, and act brave for girls you barely knew. Everybody in Ash Creek had some kind of story about it. Everybody also acted like everybody else was stupid for believing any of them. That was the American way of handling fear in a small town: joke first, deny second, bury third. My mother's funeral was on a gray Friday morning. The church was fuller than I expected. I recognized faces, made older by time and softened by sympathy. Men who had once coached my baseball team, women who used to bring casseroles after every death, surgery, or graduation. People shook my hand, told me she had been kind, told me she was proud of me, told me I should come home more often in ways polite enough not to sound like blame. I smiled. I nodded, I thanked them. The whole time, I felt like I was standing just outside my own body, watching a version of myself perform grief for a room that had known me too long to fully trust it. After the burial, I ended up at Mabel's Diner, because that's where half the town went after funerals, whether they liked the dead person or not. Ash Creek didn't believe in mourning alone. The diner hadn't changed, either. Same red vinyl booths. Same pie carousel near the register. Same coffee so strong it tasted like punishment. A couple of old men at the counter were arguing about the Colts. A family with 2 kids sat near the front window, the youngest coloring on the paper placemat. The whole place smelled like bacon grease, lemon disinfectant, and rain coming in through the front door. That's where I saw Wade Turner for the first time in years. He was in a back booth by himself, shoulders hunched, nursing coffee like it had offended him personally. Wade had been my best friend from 6th grade until sometime after graduation, when life separated us the way it separates most boys who grow up together in small towns. He looked older than 33. Not elderly, not broken, exactly, just worn in the way people get when they stay in one place too long and let every bad year stack on top of the last one. His hairline had started receding. There were deep lines around his mouth. He still had the same broad farm kid build he'd had at 17, but now it sat on him heavily, like even standing required negotiation. He noticed me looking and gave a short, humorless laugh. "Well," he said as I walked over, "guess death's the only thing that brings people back. That's still your opening line, huh? It gets worse if I try." I slid into the booth across from him. For a minute or two, we did what men from small towns do when there's too much real history in the room. We talked around everything. Work. The weather. My drive down from Indianapolis. The funeral. His dad's bad knee. Who still lived in town. Who'd died. Who'd gotten divorced. Who'd gotten arrested. The ordinary updates people use to create the illusion that time can be summarized neatly. Eventually Mabel herself came over with 2 fresh coffees and topped us off without asking. "You staying out at your mom's place?" she asked me. "Yeah. Just through the weekend, maybe a few days longer." She nodded, but her eyes drifted toward Wade for half a second. "You be careful out by Quarry Road." I almost smiled. Still doing that story? Mabel didn't smile back. "Town's been hearing things again." Wade stared into his cup. Something in the booth changed then. Just a degree or 2. Not enough to call attention if you didn't know better. But enough. "He tell you?" Mabel asked Wade. Wade shook his head once.
"Tell me what?"
Mabel folded the coffee pot against her apron with both hands. "Boy went missing last Saturday, 17, bonfire out by the creek with some kids from Norwell County. They found his truck, found his phone, found one shoe near the road." She paused. "Didn't find him." "There's 100 reasons a 17-year-old disappears," I said. She kept her eyes on me. That was all she said. Just that one little sound, it carried more judgment than a sermon. When she walked off, I looked at Wade. "You really buying into this?" He took his time before answering. "You remember the summer after junior year?" "Barely." "That's probably for the best." He said it so quietly I almost missed it. Outside the diner windows, late afternoon light had gone dull and flat. A storm was forming somewhere west, thick clouds gathering over the cornfields and turning everything the color of dirty steel. I remember noticing the weather because it gave me something else to focus on. I said, "What happened to that kid?" Wade rubbed a hand over his face. "Officially, nobody knows." And unofficially, his gaze moved past me toward the glass, toward the road leading out of town. "Unofficially, folks say they heard whistling under Miller's Bridge again." I laughed, but it came out thin. "You serious?" "No," he said. That's the problem. He leaned closer across the table then, and for the first time since I'd sat down, there was something in his eyes I didn't know what to do with. It wasn't fear exactly, it was recognition. The look of somebody who has been waiting too long for a nightmare to return and is tired of pretending surprise now that it has. "You hear anything at your mom's place after dark," he said, "don't open the back door." I stared at him. He added, "And if you hear somebody whistling outside, don't go looking for where it's coming from." That should have sounded ridiculous. Instead, it made a small, cold space open in the center of my chest. Because beneath the diner noise, beneath the scrape of forks and the hum of the refrigerator case, and the murmuring conversations from the other booths, I had the sudden, irrational certainty that I had heard those exact words before. Not from Wade, not from Maybelle, from somewhere older, somewhere wet. And then, just for a second, a broken image flashed in my mind, moonlight on black water, rusted metal overhead, and a boy's voice in the dark, whistling the first few notes of a tune I almost recognized. I blinked, and it was gone. Wade was still staring at me. "You don't remember much, do you?" he asked. "No." He leaned back again, exhausted by my answer before I even gave it. "Yeah," he said, "that's what I was afraid of."
Part 2. The friend who never got over it. That night I stayed at my mother's house alone. The place sat at the edge of town on a narrow street lined with maple trees and modest single-story homes built in the late 60s. It was the kind of neighborhood where porch lights came on at dusk and people still mowed in neat diagonal lines. My mother had lived there for 28 years, long enough for the wallpaper to outlast trends and the neighbors to age into each other's emergency contacts. Inside, the house smelled like lavender detergent, old books, and the faint medicinal scent of the hand lotion she used in winter. Her reading glasses were still on the side table beside the recliner. A grocery list sat on the kitchen counter in her handwriting. There was half a loaf of bread in the pantry and a magnet on the fridge from a county fair I'd attended in 8th grade. Grief isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just the unbearable normality of small things left in place. I spent the evening sorting paperwork because paperwork gives death the illusion of structure. Insurance forms, utility bills, church donation envelopes. A folder marked important that contained almost nothing important at all. Around 9:30, rain began ticking softly against the kitchen window. By 10, the whole house had gone quiet except for the refrigerator hum and the occasional creak you only notice in houses where one person lived alone too long. At 11:15, Wade called. I almost didn't answer. It wasn't personal. He was just the kind of voice that felt heavy even before it spoke. "You awake?" "Yeah." There was the sound of a cigarette drag on the other end. I could picture him on some porch or in the driver's seat of his truck with the dome light off. "I'm out front," he said. When I opened the door, his pickup was parked at the curb with the engine idling. I stepped out onto the porch beneath the yellow light and found him leaning against the driver's side, jacket damp from the misting rain. "You planning to make this weird?" I asked. "Already weird." He tossed his cigarette into the street and looked up and down the block like he expected somebody to overhear us through drawn blinds. "I shouldn't have said anything at the diner," he said, "but now that I did, I need you to listen. You do realize how insane you sound?" He nodded. "Yeah, that kid missing has got everybody worked up. That's all this is. You think I came over here at 11 at night because I got worked up by gossip?" I folded my arms. "Then what is it?" He hesitated long enough that rain started collecting at the edge of his hair. "You ever have a memory that doesn't feel like a memory?" he asked. "More like a bruise you keep pressing because you're sure there's something under it." I didn't answer. He went on, 2 weeks ago, my dog started whining at the back door every night around 12:30. Same time, every night. Wouldn't go outside, wouldn't even look outside, just stood there shaking. Then I started hearing it. The whistling. "Yeah," he said it flatly, without drama, which somehow made it worse. "From where?" "At first. Down near the drainage ditch behind my place, then closer. Night before last, I heard it right outside the kitchen window." I wanted to laugh, but his face stopped me. "What tune?" I asked, surprising myself. Wade looked at me sharply. That was the wrong question, and we both knew it.
After a moment he said, "You do remember something?" "No, I don't know. That was just if you're going to tell a ghost story, details help." He ignored that. "It wasn't a full song," he said, "just a few notes." "Same as before." "Before when?" He stared at me for a long second, then stepped closer and lowered his voice. "The night Eli Mercer went into the river." The name hit me wrong. Not like new information. Like old information pulled suddenly into the light. Eli Mercer. The syllables felt familiar enough to raise the hair on my arms. I pictured blonde hair. A skinny bike frame. Freckles, maybe. A kid younger than us. Then, the image slid away before I could hold on to it. "I thought he drowned," I said carefully. "That's what they called it." "What do you mean, called it?" Wade shook his head, agitated now, as if the story itself was resisting him. "I mean, there was more to it than what people said." Rain thickened around us, hissing softly on the road. "You're telling me you know what happened to him?" "I'm telling you we were there." I felt the world pull strangely out of alignment. Me and you. And Travis Pell. I knew that name too, Travis. One of the older boys we used to orbit because he drove before we did and had a mean streak, people confused for confidence. I hadn't thought about him in years. "No," I said. "If that were true, I'd remember it." Wade laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "That's what I used to think." He pulled something from his jacket pocket and handed it to me. It was an old Polaroid, bent at one corner and faded yellow around the edges. 3 teenage boys stood on Miller's Bridge in summer clothes, arms slung over each other, grinning into the camera with the careless arrogance of kids too young to know what can stick to them for life. I recognized myself immediately. Wade stood on one side of me, thinner than, sunburned, baseball cap backward. On my other side was Travis Pell. And below us, just barely visible between the metal rails in the background, was a fourth figure near a bicycle, a boy maybe 12 or 13. His face was blurred by distance, but I knew before Wade said it. That was Eli. I looked up. Who took this? Travis's girlfriend at the time. She mailed me a box last year after Travis died in Kentucky. Drunk driver. Said she found it in some old stuff. I turned the photo over. Nothing on the back. No date, no note, just proof. Not proof of anything criminal, not by itself. But proof of proximity, proof that Wade wasn't inventing this. Proof that some part of my life had been sealed off so completely that seeing my own face in a place I did not remember felt like looking at a stranger. What happened that night? I asked. Wade's jaw tightened. We messed with him. That's not an answer. We were idiots, mean idiots, Travis especially. Eli used to follow us around that summer because he wanted older boys to think he was tough. He'd show up everywhere on that bike, asking dumb questions, trying to laugh when we laughed. Wade swallowed. That night we brought him out to the bridge. For what? He didn't answer right away. Finally he said, to scare him. The rain seemed louder suddenly. How? Wade ran a hand through his wet hair and looked away. With the story. The whistle, the creak, all of it. Travis told him there was something under the bridge that answered if you whistled first. He paused. We thought he'd cry, maybe fall in the mud, maybe go home and never bother us again. I heard myself say, and... Wade looked me dead in the eye. And he went over the rail. Those words entered me slowly, too slowly. Like my brain refused to let them land all at once. Was he pushed? No. Did he jump? No. Then how did he go over? Wade's face twisted, not in grief exactly, but in the painful exhaustion of somebody who has replayed one moment so many times that every version feels guilty. He backed up while Travis was messing with him, laughing, whistling. Telling him not to look down if he heard the boy under the water call his name. Eli panicked. Slipped on the gravel by the edge. His voice dropped, there was a sound when he hit. I still hear it in my sleep. I didn't realize I had gripped the porch railing until my fingers hurt. You left him. We were kids. That's not what I asked. Wade's expression hardened, defensive for the first time. You ran, too. I don't remember it. Yeah, he snapped, lucky you. We stood there breathing in the rain-heavy dark, both of us too old now for the excuse that we had once been children. After a while, he said, quieter, we heard him in the water. My throat felt dry despite the damp air, calling for help. No. He looked past me toward the unlit backyard. Whistling. I wanted to reject the whole thing, tell him guilt had fermented into superstition, tell him grief and old secrets do weird things to people in towns where nothing new ever happens. Tell him he needed sleep, therapy, a priest, a neurologist, anything but whatever this was. Instead, I asked, why come to me now? Because it started again after you came back. That made me angry, mostly because some part of me believed he believed it. That's convenient. I'm not saying you caused it, he said, I'm saying whatever stayed quiet all these years isn't quiet anymore. And you think it's Eli? Wade didn't answer. The rain eased to a mist. Somewhere down the street a television flickered blue behind curtains, a dog barked twice and stopped. Then Wade said something that changed the air all over again. Ms. Hensley heard whistling outside her bedroom 3 nights ago. I frowned. Mrs. Hensley lived 2 houses over, she had to be nearly 80. So she told my aunt the voice, after it sounded like a little boy. Then it asked if she'd seen you come home. I said nothing. My first instinct was to call that impossible. My second was worse, my second was to remember, dimly and without context. A boy's wet voice saying my name from somewhere below me, Wade backed toward his truck. Lock your back door, he said. And if you hear anything tonight, don't answer it. I stood on the porch until he drove away. Then I went inside, locked the deadbolt, checked the kitchen door twice, and told myself the tremor in my hands was just fatigue. At 12:47 a.m., while I was lying awake in my childhood bedroom listening to the rainwater tick down the gutters, I heard someone whistle outside the house. It was faint. 3 notes. Not random, not bird-like, not wind passing through something loose. Human. Then silence. I sat up in bed, every muscle held tight. A full 10 seconds passed before the sound came again, a little closer this time. Same 3 notes. Thin and careful, like whoever made them didn't want to wake the whole street. Just me. I got out of bed and crossed to the window. The backyard was dark except for the weak spill of light from the neighbor's motion sensor beyond the fence. Wet grass, a sagging garden hose, my mother's old bird feeder turning slightly in the wind. Nothing moving. Then, just as I was telling myself it had to be some kid, some prank, some animal making a sound, my tired brain was rearranging, a voice from below the window whispered, Daniel. I froze so completely it hurt. I had not told Wade the name that appeared on my work badge. Back in town, most people still called me Danny, only my mother used Daniel. And she was dead. The voice didn't come again, the backyard stayed still, but when I looked down the next morning, there were muddy footprints on the concrete beneath the kitchen window. Small ones, like a child had stood there in the rain and waited. Part 3, the night the river called my name. I did not call the police. That probably sounds stupid, but small-town logic does strange things to people, especially when shame is mixed into it. If I'd been in Indianapolis and found wet footprints outside my kitchen window after hearing my name whispered at 1 in the morning, I might have called somebody. In Ash Creek, I told myself there were ordinary explanations because the alternatives came preloaded with childhood fear and unfinished guilt. Kids. A prank. Bad sleep. Grief, Wade getting into my head. By noon I almost believed it. I spent the day going through my mother's closets and kitchen drawers, filling donation boxes, signing forms at the funeral home, and taking casseroles from neighbors who looked at me with the careful pity reserved for adult children returning home too late. Everyone was kind. Everyone wanted something from me: 2 updates, decisions, permission, sentiment. Did I want to keep the china? Would I sell the house? Was I coming back for good? Had I talked to Pastor Glenn about the memorial plaque? At 3, Mrs. Hensley caught me while I was dragging a trash bag to the curb. She had a purse clutched to her chest and the worried face of a woman who had lived next to my mother long enough to feel entitled to concern. "You sleeping all right in there, honey?" "Not really." She nodded like that confirmed something. "I thought I saw someone in your backyard last night." A cold feeling passed through me, though I tried not to show it. "What time?" "Oh, late. After midnight." She lowered her voice. I didn't call out because I couldn't tell if it was a child or just smaller than I expected. "Did you see a face?" "No, just movement." She paused, and I heard somebody making a little tune. There it was again. Not said dramatically, just offered plainly, like weather. I asked what kind of tune, and she hummed 3 uncertain notes that made the back of my neck tighten instantly. Same pattern. Same little rise at the end. I thanked her, lied that it was probably some local teenagers, and took the trash bag back inside because my hands had gone weak. That evening, I drove out to Wade's place. He lived in a sagging farmhouse 10 minutes south of town on land his family used to work more profitably than they did now. There were rusting machine parts in the yard, a propane tank near the shed, and one porch step that sank with a damp wooden groan when I stepped on it. He answered the door already holding a beer like he'd expected me. "You heard it." I hated that he didn't even phrase it like a question. "I heard something." He stepped aside to let me in. The house smelled like motor oil, coffee, and the stale heat of a place occupied by one man who had stopped trying to impress visitors years ago. A baseball game muttered low on the television with no one watching. There were dog toys in the corner, but no dog. "Where's your dog?" "At my sister's, took her yesterday." "Why?" Wade looked at me like that answer should have been obvious. "Because she started barking at walls." That shut me up. We sat at his kitchen table while dusk settled outside in layers. He had spread things out in front of him: the Polaroid, a county map, an old newspaper clipping inside a plastic sleeve, and what looked like pages torn from a notebook. "You've been building a shrine," I said. "No," he said. "I've been trying to remember, before it remembers for me." The newspaper clipping was from the Ash Creek Gazette, August 1989. Local boy presumed drowned in Blackwater Creek. A grainy school photo stared up at me: blonde hair, marrow face, awkward smile. Younger than I expected. 12, maybe, 13 at most. Eli Mercer. The article was short. Search efforts suspended, bicycle found abandoned near Miller's Bridge, authorities believe the child may have slipped from the embankment, no foul play suspected. No foul play suspected. Those 4 words sat on the page like a blessing we didn't deserve. Wade slid the notebook pages toward me. I started writing down what came back when it started again. They were dated, but messy, half memories, fragments. Observations from the last 2 weeks, he whistles before rain. Only 3 notes at first. Windows fog on the outside, don't answer voice if it uses family. Water under door this morning, but no leak. Dreamed Travis was standing in creek with his mouth open. I stopped on the last line. What happened to Travis? Wade stared past me for a second. Dead, last fall. You said a drunk driver. Emma Hitchem. Had he been hearing it too? Wade took a drink and didn't answer right away. 3 months before he died, he called me from Kentucky at 2 in the morning, he said. First time I'd heard from him in years. He was drunk and crying, kept saying he'd seen a bicycle in the road outside his trailer, lying on its side with the front wheel spinning. Said every time he went near it, he heard somebody under the culvert whistling. Convenient ghost timing. You really still think this is just a story? I rubbed my face, suddenly exhausted. I think guilt makes people superstitious. Then how did the thing outside your mother's house know your name? I had no good answer. He leaned forward. Tell me exactly what you heard. So I did. The whistle. The whisper. The footprints. Mrs. Hensley seeing something. I left out how that voice sounded, not wet, not monstrous, not theatrical. Just soft. Childlike. Familiar in a way I couldn't explain. When I finished, Wade nodded like pieces were falling into place. It's the same pattern. What pattern? It starts at the edges, outside, far off. Like it's checking whether you still hear it. He tapped the notebook. Then it gets closer, windows, doors, drainage ditches. Under floors if it can. You say that like this happened before. He said nothing. I stared at him. It did. He looked tired enough to collapse. After the accident, for maybe a month. Mostly to Travis, some to me. He glanced up. One night, to you. That last sentence hit differently.
What happened? You don't remember? No.
Wade licked his lips, then said, we were all at the Pell's old tool shed. Travis thought if we stayed together it couldn't get us separately. I almost laughed at the childishness of that logic until I remembered we had, in fact, been children. It started whistling outside. Wade said. Travis told us not to react. Then your head snapped toward the wall like somebody had called you from the other side of it. The room around me seemed to recede a little. What did I do? You got up and walked to the door. My heartbeat had become annoyingly loud in my ears. And you opened it. I stared at him. There was nobody there, he said. Just the sound from out near the ditch. But you stood on the threshold and said, he says he's cold. Something old and terrible moved at the edge of my mind then. Not memory exactly. More like the pressure of memory trying to surface all at once. I stood up so fast the chair scraped hard against the floor. I need air. Wade didn't stop me. Outside, the evening was close and humid, the kind of Midwestern summer air that makes even breathing feel damp. Crickets had started up in the fields. Somewhere far off, thunder rolled. I made it to the porch rail before the first flash came. A new image this time. Brighter. Sharper. Bridge railing under my hands, Travis laughing too loudly. Wade saying something I couldn't hear over the metal rattle of a bicycle hitting the ground. A smaller boy stepping backward, trying to smile so we wouldn't think he was scared. Then a whistle from below us. Not from Eli. From under the bridge. I grabbed the porch so hard the wood bit into my palms. Wade came outside behind me but kept his distance. What did you remember? I swallowed and tasted copper for some reason. There was already whistling before he fell. Wade said nothing. I turned. You told me Travis was doing it. I thought he was. You thought. He looked out over the darkening field. That's what makes this hard.
The older I get,
the less sure I am which parts were us and which parts started before we got there. A low wind moved through the grass, the field rippled black-green under the coming storm. Then, from somewhere beyond the tree line, behind the house, I heard it, 3 clear notes. Not imagined, not distant enough to dismiss. Real. Wade went rigid. Again the whistle came, a little longer this time. His porch light buzzed overhead. The fields stayed empty. The trees at the back of the property barely moved. Then a voice from the dark said, in a tone so calm it was almost polite, Wade. He backed into the porch post as if struck. The voice came again, from lower now. Closer to the wet ditch near the soybean rows. Wade, it said. I found my bike. Every rational explanation in the world died right there. Wade made a sound I'd never heard from another grown man, not a yell, not a sob, something smaller and more helpless than both. I grabbed his arm and pulled him inside. We locked the door. Then the back door. Then every window as if any of that mattered. For the next hour we sat at his kitchen table with all the lights on and the television volume turned up louder than necessary, like a family waiting out tornado sirens. At 10:13 p.m., the sink faucet turned on by itself. Not full pressure. Just enough for water to thread out in a steady silver line. Wade shut it off with shaking hands. At 10:21, muddy water seeped in a thin line beneath the back door. At 10:34, the radio in the garage came on to dead static. And at 10:41, from somewhere under the floorboards, I heard the first full whistle tune. Not 3 notes now. A child's attempt at a melody. Broken, wet, patient, waiting for us to remember the rest.
Part 4. What we left in the river. I did not sleep that night. Neither did Wade. Around 2 in the morning the sound stopped all at once, and the silence felt worse somehow, like the thing outside had not left, only stepped back far enough to enjoy our relief. Dawn came gray and filthy through the kitchen window. Every surface in Wade's house looked exhausted, so did we. By 6:30 we were driving out to Miller's Bridge, not because either of us had a plan, because fear, when it goes on long enough, starts impersonating purpose. Blackwater Creek ran wider than I remembered, and slower, too, thick from summer rain and shaded by cottonwoods along the banks. The bridge rose out of the morning fog like a discarded piece of industrial bone rust on every beam, weeds pushing through the gravel shoulder, old spray paint faded under newer layers of teenagers proving they had existed here for at least one summer night. In daylight it looked harmless, that was the first lie. The second was thinking daylight made any difference. We parked on the shoulder and stood for a moment without speaking. A pickup crossed from the far side, its tires rattling over the steel joints. The driver didn't look at us, locals rarely did out here. Miller's Bridge had a way of encouraging people to mind their own business. "You sure?" I asked finally. "No," Wade said, that was honest enough to count. We walked onto the bridge together, the creek below moved dark and sluggish between banks thick with reeds and mud. From up top the water reflected almost nothing. No sky, no trees, just a dull black surface broken now and then by current slipping around submerged branches. I gripped the railing and forced myself to look. At first all I saw was water, then my brain began doing what human brains do in bad places, building faces out of shadow, hands out of reeds, movement out of current. I stepped back. Wade pointed near the far side. "That's where his bike was found." I followed his finger, gravel shoulder, low patch of weeds. A section where the rail had been replaced more recently than the rest. "Did you ever tell anybody?" I asked. "No. Why not, later? When you were older?" He laughed bitterly. "You mean after the whole town already believed it was an accident? After search crews gave up? After Sheriff Maddox told our parents' boys that age did stupid things near rivers?" He shook his head. "You know how this place works. Once a story sets, folks don't dig unless they have to. And you let it sit." He turned on me then, sudden anger finally boiling through the guilt. "Don't do that," he snapped. "Don't stand here like you're clean just because your mind buried it better." That should have made me angry back. Instead it landed because it was true. I did not remember the details. But some part of me had known enough to stay away from Ash Creek for 11 years. We spent the morning along the banks, beneath the bridge, checking mud, reeds, and old concrete footings like two men who had seen too many crime shows and not enough therapists. There was nothing obvious. No bones. No clothing. No bike. What we did find were signs that the place still attracted the wrong kind of attention: beer cans, a fire pit ringed with stones, cigarette butts, a scorched folding chair, footprints from recent nights. Teenagers still came out here to perform fear. I wondered how many of them had heard something real and gone home deciding never to mention it. Around noon we found the first thing that mattered. It was lodged in the mud near a cluster of roots half hidden by the creek edge. A small rusted bicycle bell. Wade saw it before I did. He crouched, wiped sludge off the metal, and went white. "I remember this," he said.
The bell was dented along one side. Faded blue paint clung around the rim. There was no way to prove it belongs to Eli Mercer. But the moment I saw it, something in my head unlocked with a sickening little click. I was back on the bridge, summer, heat, mosquitoes, Travis showing off.
Wade laughing because Travis was laughing. Me laughing because not laughing would have made me the next target. Eli beside his bike, trying too hard to act older. Travis telling him to go lean over the rail if he really wanted to hear the boy under the water whistle back. Then a sound from below, not imagined, not later added by guilt. Real, 3 notes rising from the creek. Eli froze. I heard myself from the memory saying, "Did you guys hear that?" Travis answered, "That's me, idiot," but his voice had gone thin. Then the sound came again from under us, unmistakably lower than the bridge deck. Eli stepped back, his heel caught loose gravel. The bike tipped first with that clattering metallic snap. Then Eli went over. I came back to the present, breathing too fast. Wade saw my face and knew. "You got it back." "Not all of it. It's enough." "No," I said. "It's worse." He stood, mud clung to his boots in thick dark cakes. "Why?" "Because Travis wasn't making the sound." Wade looked down at the bell in his hand and closed his eyes. "Yeah," he said softly. "I know. We took the bell to Sheriff Coulter Maddox that afternoon. He was nearing retirement and had the slow, weathered look of a man who had spent 30 years mediating domestic calls, drunk fights, deer on-road reports, and every version of human denial a county could produce. He knew both of us by name before we sat down, which in Ash Creek meant we were already at a disadvantage. I told him the truth in the simplest version I could. That we had been present the night Eli Mercer went missing. That we never told the full story. That we had been older kids pulling a cruel prank that led to him falling. That we had found an item near the creek that may have belonged to him. I did not mention the whistling. Some things sound less credible when fluorescent lights are involved. Sheriff Maddox listened without interruption, fingers linked on the desk. When I finished, he looked first at me, then Wade. "That's a hell of a thing to carry this long," he said.
"That's all you've got?" Wade asked. "What do you want me to say?" "That we killed him." Maddox's expression didn't change. "Did you push him?" "No." "Did you strike him, grab him, force him over?" "No." "Then, from where I'm sitting, sounds like a reckless stunt ended with a boy slipping into a creek." "Because we scared him," I said. He nodded once. "Maybe so." "Maybe." Wade echoed. The sheriff rubbed a hand across his jaw. "You boys were old enough to know better and young enough to do it anyway. That doesn't make you innocent. But it doesn't make this a murder case, either." The room felt too bright, too dry, too ordinary for what we were saying in it. Maddox leaned back. "I can reopen the old file, log the bell as possible evidence, have county search the area again if they sign off." He paused. "But unless you can tell me where remains are or somebody confesses to more than a prank, there may not be much left to prove." Wade laughed harshly. "You still don't get it." Maddox looked annoyed now. "Get what?" Wade stood so fast his chair legs squealed against the floor. "That he's still there." I stood, too. "Wade." But he was past stopping. "The kid last week. The whistling. My house. His mother's place. It's not just memory, Coulter." The sheriff's face closed off in exactly the way lawmen's faces do. When they decide a man is either grieving, unstable, or drunk before noon. "Go home," he said. "Both of you. Let me do my job." Outside the station, Wade lit a cigarette with unsteady hands and took 2 drags before throwing it into the parking lot. "He thinks this is guilt." "Maybe part of it is." Wade looked at me like I'd failed some invisible test. Then he said, "Your mother heard it before she died." The world stopped for half a second. "What?" He looked instantly sorry, but not enough to take it back. "She called me in June," he said, "asked if I'd been near the house late at night." I stepped toward him. "Why the hell would she call you?"
"Because she knew we were close once. She said she'd seen somebody standing by the back fence after midnight. Small. Wet. Didn't move when she turned the kitchen light on. My voice came out sharper than I intended. "And you didn't tell me?" She said not to. I was too angry to speak for a moment. "She told me," Wade said, "that the figure kept looking toward your old bedroom window. She asked if there was anything from back then you never told her." I felt sick. "What did you say?" "The truth, which was almost nothing." That should have comforted me. It didn't. Because now I was picturing my mother alone in that kitchen weeks before her stroke, hearing the same sound outside her house and keeping it to herself because small-town people are trained early to protect the ones they love from truths they don't know how to carry. And beneath the grief was something worse. A question. Had it come for her because of me? The storm rolled in that evening around dusk. By 9, wind was bending the trees and rain was hammering rooftops all over town. County weather alerts flashed across every screen in Indiana. People stayed home. Roads emptied. Porch lights disappeared behind curtains. Blackwater Creek would be rising fast. At 9:17 p.m., Wade called and said, "Tonight's the night." I knew what he meant before he explained. "It'll be strongest in the storm," he said. "That's how it was then." "This is insane." "Probably. You still going?" "Yes." I stood in my mother's kitchen, holding the phone while rain battered the window above the sink. Water ran in crooked silver lines down the glass. Every reflection in the room looked slightly wrong. "What exactly do you think we're doing out there?" I asked. "Finding where he went in." "And then?" Wade's voice turned flat and distant. "And then maybe we stop leaving him alone down there." The line crackled with thunder. I should have refused. I should have stayed in the house, locked the doors, waited for daylight. Let the sheriff reopen files and county crews do their work. That would have been sane. Safe. Adult. Instead I grabbed my keys. Because some part of me knew this had stopped being about proof a long time ago. And because, in the storm-dark kitchen, beneath the sound of rain, I could already hear a child somewhere outside beginning to whisper. Part 5. Under Miller's Bridge. Storm nights in Indiana don't arrive gracefully. They take the sky all at once. By the time I reached Quarry Road, the world beyond my headlights had narrowed to wet asphalt, whipping trees, and curtains of rain so thick they looked solid. Lightning flashed behind the clouds in long silent sheets, turning cornfields silver for half a second before darkness swallowed them again. Wade's truck was already there. It sat angled near the shoulder, with the driver's door open, an interior light glowing weakly against the storm. He was standing at the start of the bridge in a rain jacket, one hand gripping a flashlight, the other holding a coil of rope like a man in a movie about to attempt something noble and probably fatal. "This better not be your whole plan," I shouted over the wind. "It's what I've got." We went under the bridge from the east embankment, sliding down mud made slick by rain. Up above us, tires rattled once across the deck and were gone. The creek below had become a swollen, rushing body of black water pushing hard against the concrete supports. Everything sounded wrong beneath the bridge. Water didn't just move, it surged and breathed and slapped, wind moaned through the steel beams overhead in tones so close to human that every few seconds my body reacted before my brain could sort sound from suggestion. The flashlight beams shook in our hands, bouncing across mud, reeds, broken branches, and the underside of the bridge, where rust and runoff had stained the concrete like old smoke. Wade pointed toward the center support. "That's where I keep dreaming about." We moved carefully along the bank. Mud grabbed at our boots, rain got under our collars. Once I slipped knee-deep near the edge and caught myself on a root slick as rope. The creek smelled like wet earth, metal, and something older, something trapped too long below the fresh stormwater. Then the whistling started. Not from one place, from all around us. 3 notes from upstream. A longer phrase from the opposite bank. Then, impossibly, the same tune from directly overhead in the metal frame of the bridge, as if the steel itself had learned to breathe through pursed lips. Wade stopped dead. "Don't answer it," he said. I wasn't planning to. Lightning flashed. For an instant the whole underside of the bridge was bright white, and in that one instant I saw a figure standing knee-deep in the water near the center support. Small. Thin. Head tilted slightly, as if listening. Then, darkness again. I swung my flashlight toward where it had been,
but the beam found only rain and current. "You saw that?" I said. Wade's silence told me enough. We reached the center support and found a pocket of debris jammed against the concrete: branches, beer cans, leaves, a torn fishing bobber, half a rotted crate. Wade set down the rope and started pulling things loose barehanded, with the frantic focus of a man who needed effort more than hope. I helped because not helping felt worse. Mud coated my wrists. Rainwater ran into my sleeves. Every few seconds another whistle rose from somewhere close enough to make my stomach seize. Then my flashlight caught something pale in the bank. A shape partly buried where the mud had collapsed inward. I knelt, dug with both hands, and uncovered a ring, not jewelry store nice, cheap class ring, tarnished, set with a dark fake stone. Inside the band were initials so worn I almost missed them: E.M. I held it up. Wade stared at it and whispered, "Oh God." And right then the voice came. Not Eli's, my mother's. Soft, tired. Close to my left ear. "Daniel," she said, exactly as she had when I was a boy avoiding chores. "Come help me with this." I turned so fast I nearly fell. No one was there. Rain, concrete, Wade, black water, but the voice had been real enough to slice straight through every defense I had. Wade grabbed my shoulder hard. "Don't follow it." I heard her. "I know. You heard that too."
He looked at me with pure terror. "No. I heard my dad." That's when I understood the worst part of it. It didn't just call, it called like love. Something splashed in the creek behind us. We both spun. A bicycle wilt surfaced briefly from the dark water, turning slowly, then sank again without the rest of the bike ever appearing. I could not make my body accept what it had seen. Wade backed away from the bank, breathing hard. "It wants us in." "Then why show us anything?" "Because it wants us to come willingly." The whistle sounded again, full tune now, from beneath the water itself. Wade shone his flashlight at the current and the beam caught a face just under the surface. It was there and gone so quickly I almost doubted it, but not quickly enough. Pale skin. Open eyes, hair moving in the current, young, watching us. Wade made a strangled sound and stumbled backward into the support column. His flashlight fell, beam spinning wildly across mud and water and steel. Then another voice rose from the creek. This one unmistakably belonged to a boy. Not a monster, not a demon's growl. Just a child's voice made distant by water. "You left," it said. My whole body went cold. The voice came again. "You heard me and you left." Wade was crying now, openly, the way only someone crushed past dignity can cry. "I'm sorry," he said hoarsely. "I'm sorry." The current surged. For one impossible second, hands appeared just beneath the surface, not breaking it, not fully rising, just pale shapes moving upward from below. I grabbed Wade's arm. "We need to go." But he wasn't looking at me anymore. He was staring into the water with the fixed attention of a sleepwalker hearing his own name from home. A different voice came then. Younger, his own. A boy's voice speaking from the creek in Wade Turner's exact tone from decades earlier. "Don't be scared," it said. "Come look." Wade took one step toward the bank. I yanked him back. "Wade." He fought men not violently, just with the blind stubbornness of someone halfway hypnotized. "It's me," he whispered. "It's me from that night." "That's not possible." "Yes, it is." The water rushed higher against the support. Lightning flashed again, and in that burst of white I saw them all at once beneath the surface, not clearly, not in forensic detail, but enough multiple pale faces below the black current, turned upward as if the creek had been collecting the last expression of everyone who ever listened too long. I don't know whether that was supernatural truth or storm-driven madness, I only know I saw it. And Wade saw something even worse, because he suddenly tore free of me and lurched down the bank toward the water, shouting, "Eli." I went after him, slipped, caught his jacket, lost it, regained it. Mud sprayed, the rope slid under my boot,
the river roared louder than any human voice should have to compete with. Then the bank gave way, a whole section of soaked earth collapsed under Wade's weight and sent him into the creek up to his chest. He came up, gasping, clawing at the mud. I dropped flat and grabbed for him. Our hands locked. For half a second I thought I had him, then his expression changed, not to panic, to wonder. He looked past me, over my shoulder, and whispered, "Travis." I turned instinctively. That mistake almost cost both of us. There was no one there, only the black underside of the bridge and swinging rain. When I turned back, something had yanked Wade lower, not dramatically, not movie monster fast. Just a sudden downward pull, like hands under the surface had found his legs. I screamed his name and dragged with everything I had. He came up once more, mouth open, eyes wide with the animal terror that finally breaks through denial. "Don't let," the rest vanished in water. My fingers lost his wrist. The current took him under the bridge. I went after him 2 steps before survival overruled grief. The bank beneath me was collapsing too. Water hit my knees, then thighs. Something brushed my calf from below, not a branch, not current, not anything I could afford to identify. I crawled backward through mud like an animal. As I did, the whistle sounded inches from my ear. Then a child's voice said, very gently, "You still remember the rest now." I scrambled up the embankment, slid twice, smashed my hand on rock, and did not look back until I reached the road. When I finally turned, lightning lit the bridge and the swollen creek beneath it. For that one bright second, I saw Wade standing under the center span in water that should have been over his head. He was motionless, pale-faced, looking straight at me. Then darkness returned, and when lightning flashed again, he was gone. Part 6. The Whistle That Never Stopped. Sheriff Maddox found me walking barefoot down Quarry Road at 11:08 p.m. I know the time because later, when he gave his statement, he mentioned the dashboard clock of the cruiser and how I looked like I'd been dragged behind a truck. Mud from chest to ankles, one shoe missing, hands cut open. No jacket, barely coherent. County rescue crews searched Blackwater Creek until 3 in the morning. They found Wade's flashlight lodged against debris half a mile downstream. They found the rope. They found the bicycle bell and the class ring where I said we'd found them. They did not find Wade Turner. By daylight the storm had passed. News traveled through Ash Creek the way it always did, faster than emergency vehicles, faster than fact. By breakfast the diner crowd already knew Wade was missing. By lunch, half the county knew I'd been the one with him at the bridge. By evening, every version of the story was circulating at once. Middle-aged men at gas stations said Wade must have slipped. Church women lowered their voices and said the bridge had finally taken another one. Teenagers turned tragedy back into legend before the mud was even dry. And in the middle of all that, I gave a statement. Then another. Then the fuller one. Not because the sheriff pressured me. Because after that night, silence felt like a second crime. I told Maddox everything I could remember, the prank in 1989, Travis Pell, Eli Mercer backing toward the rail, the fall, the panic, the running. I told him we'd hidden our involvement because fear turns cowards practical before it makes them cruel. I told him Wade had carried it. I told him I had forgotten enough to pretend distance was innocence. I did not tell him every supernatural detail, not at first. But I told enough. Enough for him to reopen Eli Mercer's file officially, enough for county divers to search deeper sections of Blackwater Creek while the weather held. Enough for Eli's surviving aunt in Fort Wayne to receive a call she should have received 37 years earlier from boys who had once valued self-protection over a drowning child's truth. The town reacted the way towns do when old sin gets dragged into daylight. Some people were furious. Some were relieved. Some claimed they had always known more than they said. Some accused me of making up ghost nonsense to soften guilt. In a way, they weren't wrong. Because guilt was always the center of it, whether something supernatural wrapped around it or not. 3 days later, county search recovered partial remains from a collapsed pocket along a deep bend downstream from Miller's Bridge. I won't describe them in detail. They didn't need to. The location, the age,
The old fragments of clothing, the ring, they were enough. After nearly 4 decades, Eli Mercer was finally found. His aunt came to town for identification procedures and burial arrangements. I saw her once outside the funeral home. She was in her 60s, with Eli's same narrow face made older and sterner by life. She looked at me like she knew exactly who I was even before Maddox introduced us. I told her I was sorry. That sentence felt insultingly small. She listened. Then she said, "He called for help, didn't he?" I couldn't lie anymore. Yes. She closed her eyes, not dramatically, not for my benefit. Just the involuntary shutting down of someone picturing a child's last moments after decades of not being allowed to know them. When she opened them again, she said, "Then you live with that." She walked inside before I could answer. And she was right. That was the sentence, not prison. Not public hatred. Not even death, maybe. Memory, clean memory. No missing pieces left to hide behind. A week later the county closed Miller's Bridge indefinitely. Structural concerns, they said publicly. Too dangerous after storm damage. Plans for demolition were moved up. Men in yellow vests fenced off both ends. Teenagers started taking pictures with the barriers before deputies chased them off. The town acted like removing the bridge meant resolving the story. That's another American habit. Tear down the place and pretend you demolished the truth with it. I stayed through Eli's burial. Small service. Fewer people than there should have been. More than I expected. Sheriff Maddox attended. So did Mabel from the diner, Mrs. Hensley from next door, Pastor Glenn, Wade's sister, and a cluster of locals who either remembered 1989 directly or had inherited it secondhand, the way all folklore survives. Wade was still missing. His family held out hope longer than the river justified. During the burial, wind moved softly through the cemetery trees. No storm, no drama. Just Indiana summer settling over the grass. As the casket was lowered, I heard somebody behind me whistle 3 notes. I turned so fast my neck cramped. Nobody there. Only rows of stone, cut grass, and distant cars passing on county roads. I left Ash Creek 2 days later. There was nothing keeping me except a house full of my mother's things and a version of myself I no longer trusted. I arranged the sale, boxed what mattered, donated what didn't, and drove back to Indianapolis under a bright sky that felt offensively normal. For a while, life pretended to resume, work emails, traffic on I-465. Microwave dinners. The thin comfort of urban noise. I rented a different apartment downtown because I couldn't stand the first one after coming back. Too many pipes in the walls. Too much nighttime plumbing. Too easy to mistake city sounds for something approaching. I told myself the move would help. For almost 2 months, it did. No whistling. No voices. No muddy water under doors. I slept with a fan on and the television low, and routine slowly performed its old trick of making horror feel regional, local. Contained. A thing that had happened in a small Indiana town beside a black creek and an old bridge now fenced for demolition. Then, in early October, I was walking home from a parking garage after working late. It had rained an hour earlier, streets still shone under traffic lights. Water ran along the curb in thin streams, carrying wrappers, leaves, and city grime toward the storm drains. I stopped at a crosswalk on Illinois Street and heard a child whistling. 3 notes. Low. Very close. Not from the sidewalk, from below the grade at my feet. Every part of me went cold so fast it felt like being dropped into winter. The signal changed. Cars moved. Someone beside me cursed into a Bluetooth headset and kept walking. No one else reacted. The whistle came again from under the storm drain, then a voice, softened by distance and rushing water, said, "You looked away again." I did not run. That's the worst part to admit. I stood there because terror had gone past panic and into recognition. Because in that instant I understood the final truth. It was never Miller's Bridge. Not really. Places matter. Water matters. Stories matter, but legends like that don't anchor themselves to steel and concrete. They anchor themselves to witnesses, to listeners. To the ones who hear a voice in the dark and decide, for whatever reason, to save themselves first.
The bridge had only been where it started. I got home somehow, I locked every lock, I turned on every light. I sat in my kitchen until morning with a hammer on the table like that meant anything. At 3:13 a.m., my apartment sink turned on by itself. A thin silver stream of water ran into the basin, then, over the sound of it, I heard whistling from inside the wall. Same tune. Patient. Familiar. Still unfinished. And that's why I'm telling this now, because people in towns like mine always tell the story wrong. They say if you hear the whistle at Miller's Bridge after midnight, don't look under the water. That is not the real warning. The real warning is this. If something calls for help in the dark, and you hear it answer the first time, because if you leave it there long enough, it learns your voice. And once it does, it doesn't need the bridge anymore.